let's talk about now the cosine function and its inverse function. Since the cosine function, once again, just like the sine, does not have an inverse, we're going to need to restrict it in some kind of domain where the horizontal line test will pass. And that's going to pass from 0 to pi. Okay, so from the domain from 0 to pi is where our restricted domain is going to be. So let's just go ahead and what is the domain then of our restricted cosine function? Well, it's going to go from 0 to pi. So x will be from 0 to pi right here. And our range, once again, will go from -1 to 1. -1 to 1. Since inverse functions switch their x and y values, the cosine domain will now become the inverse cosine range. So all these values will get moved over here. So now the new range values will go from 0 to pi, and the domain values of our inverse of cosine will be the range values of cosine. So x will be from -1 to 1. Okay? And this right here are the coordinate points that go from 0 to pi. And what I've done down here is I wrote those down by just switching. The x went from the domain to the range values down here, and the y moved up to the range. Okay? And so as you can see here, check this out. So if I plot these points now, 1, 0. So 1, 0 is right here. And then pi over 3, or I'm sorry, 1/2 pi over 3. So half pi over 3. Okay. 0 pi over 2. 0 pi over 2. -1/2 2 pi over 3. -1/2 2 pi over 3. And as you can see here, this is what our inverse cosine looks like. And if I took this, and if I wanted to, you could also graph on top of this the inverse of this, which would be our cosine. But this was really the only thing that you need to know for our cosine. And our arc cosine is the most important thing that you need to take away from this. Not necessarily the graph, but the domain and range of cosine and the inverse domain and range for cosine. And let's just quickly go through the tangent real quick. As you can see here, the tangent function actually is invertible in a restricted domain as well. Okay, but if you just leave it the way it is, it's going to hit it once, twice, 3, 4, 5. So if we restrict it though from -pi over 2 to pi over 2, then that means it's only going to hit it once here. So our domain right here will go from -pi over 2 to pi over 2. And notice that it's not equal to, okay, because of the vertical asymptotes. And the range values, well, how far down does this go? Well, this goes to -infinity, and this goes up to +infinity. So it's going to go from -infinity to +infinity. And if you look now at the inverse of this now, this goes here, and that guy's going to go right there. So I'm just going to go ahead and switch these guys, and we'll see what the graph looks like. -infinity to infinity. And lastly, these right here will switch from -pi over 2 to pi over 2. So if you want to see what this graph looks like right here, you just basically same thing. I take the x values, which are my domain, and I put them down here, change those guys right there, and this is what the graph is going to look like. Not that that's necessary or very important right now. What's important is that we know what the restrictions are. Okay, so in review, this is what we've learned so far. This is what you need to know. The restrictions for the domain and range of the arcsine, arccosine, and arctangent are as follows. So you might want to have this maybe written down in one location, or if you just want to, because you kind of written down from all the other examples as well.